13 weeks down, 12 to go. The NBA is halfway through their 2021-2022 season, and with trades constantly being made, players being benched due to COVID-19, and records being broken, it's anything but normal. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I hope you all had a lovely holiday. I'm Lexy Leidlein, joined by Garcia and Eric Fenstermaker. Tonight we will be looking at what has been accomplished so far this season, and looking ahead to what improvements must be made. So gentlemen, I know there's no I in team, but there have definitely been some players that have been focal points or at the helm of their team's success. So Carlos, I'll start with you. Who's been leading their team to a successful season so far?
Well, there's no doubt that the NBA has had its fair share of issues with COVID this season and with injuries, but I think the team that has been hit the hardest with the injury bug has to be the Miami Heat. Their two-star players, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, have been out a combined 41 games, and there's been 15 games where both players have been sidelined. Now, why does this make sense? Well, the Miami Heat are currently tied with the Chicago Bulls for the first place in the Eastern Conference, and with your two-star players out, there's only one focal point to look at, and it's the Heat's role players. I'm looking at guys like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Sixth Man of the Year candidate Tyler Hero, even a guy like Kyle Guy, who signed an NBA hardship contract. He's been putting in solid minutes and making sure that his minutes are worth it when he's on the floor. In those 15 games that both Adebayo and Butler have been out, the Heat are 11-4. So they've shown that they can win and they can make some major moves in the Eastern Conference without those 8-tier players. And I think the rest of the Eastern Conference needs to be on watch, because when the rest of the Heat come back and they're healthy, they're going to be making some major noise, especially going into the postseason.
Yeah, Carlos, I really love that opinion. I mean, you talk about the Miami Heat. It says a lot about a team when you can get your role players to really step up if you're superstars and able to get the job done. But let's be honest, the NBA is a superstar-driven league. The top guys get the top honors. So let's look at one of the best guys in the league, and that's Ja Morant. This guy has been absolutely incredible this season. The Grizzlies are off to a fantastic start to the early part of this year. Now, Ja Morant, he's averaging about 24 points and 7 assists a game, showing he can get his points, and he also helps everybody else get theirs as well. So he's been a major catalyst for this offense. And also, he's an athletic freak. Did you see that block? Absolutely incredible. He's a guy that gets it done both offensively and defensively. And Memphis, they've been red hot. 20 of their last 25 games, victories. 80% over the last 25 games, wins, and that's vaulted them up towards the top of the West. They currently sit at third behind teams like the Suns and the Warriors, who are both legitimate title contenders. Ja Morant, he's a smaller guy from a smaller school with a smaller market team, but he's had a huge contribution to this season.
I completely agree. I think you both made really strong points, you with the Heat and you with the Grizzlies. One player that I think is kind of forgotten about is Cade Cunningham. He had a tough beginning to his season, starting behind everybody else in the NBA, coming off a training camp injury. However, he's been keeping the Detroit Pistons somewhat afloat, and he's currently vying with Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers for that #1 spot in the Kia Rookie Player of the Year. So, moving on, let's look at teams that, haven't really hit expectations. So, Eric, I'll start with you. What team needs to prove more in the second half of the season?
Lexy, Carlos, the Boston Celtics are one of the most iconic franchises in all NBA history. And there is nothing iconic about this Boston Celtics team, though. They have been absolutely horrendous. This team this season, 23-22, just one game above 500. If this season ends today, they're going to the play-in tournament as the number 10 seed. They're barely falling in. Look at this duo here, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. It's supposed to be on paper one of the best duos in the league. Tatum averaging 26, Jaylen Brown with 24, having one of his best seasons. And ultimately, where's it gotten them? Again, just one game above 500. They're really not getting the job done. Now, when you factor in guys like Marcus Smart, who's a great defender, Robert Williams, who is a growing big man in the league, ultimately, how is this team not doing better? Just one game above 500, barely scrapping their way along. At the beginning of the week, they weren't even in the playoffs, and they're not getting the job done. Over the last couple of seasons, we've seen the Celtics fall apart. It's been the same. We're mediocre, we make the playoffs, maybe win a game, that's it. This year, it looks like the Celtics kind of drawing that line in the sand. Like, this is as far as we're going to go. We're not going to accept mediocrity anymore. And if it continues, we could see Jaylen Brown get shipped out, other players be gone. There could be potential for the Celtics to finally blow this thing up, because it hasn't been working over the last couple of years. So if the Celtics don't get their act together, don't finish well down the stretch, a lot of these players can be moving to new cities at the beginning of next year.
Eric, I have to agree with you. The Boston Celtics are one of the greatest NBA franchises of all time. Another great NBA franchise, the Los Angeles Lakers. However, the city of Los Angeles has been nothing but abnormal this season. Currently, the Lakers are sitting as the 8th seed in the West with a 22-22 record, but this is nothing short of a rebuild year. The Lakers had high expectations coming into the season. They acquired Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony in the offseason, and if this was 2014, they would be the clear-cut championship contenders. However, this is 2022, and the Lakers are falling way behind. The chemistry, the players, they just haven't clicked. Head coach Frank Vogel is on the hot seat right now, and he could really be seeing a new coaching job, or he could be at his couch at home at the end of the season, because as of right now, the Lakers don't look to be making the playoffs. LeBron James, year 19, he leads the Lakers top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists. However, we saw last year versus the Suns in the first round, they're going to be playing younger, faster, more athletic guys, and LeBron James can't carry the load going into the postseason for who knows how many rounds. So I think the Lakers are definitely in for a huge shock going into the second half of the season, and they need to have the best expectations going into the second half.
Yeah, I agree. Both these teams have a lot to prove. I think another team that has a lot to prove still is the Charlotte Hornets. They had a really strong beginning of the season. However, at the end of 2021, in November and December, they lost 9 of 10 games in a row. Only won 1 game. What happened? However, they've gone 8-3 so far, and now they're currently sitting in number 7 spot in the Eastern Conference, 1.5 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the second half of the season. Well, that's all we have for this NBA edition of Penn State Sports Night. For Carlos Garcia and Eric Fenstermaker, I'm Lexy Leidlein. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.